As human beings, when we evolved, when we were walking out of Africa and expanding the great human civilization all across the world, we did so through cooperation, communication. Yes, unfortunately, through warfare too. But we as a people, we as a united species, were able to thrive by speaking and building communications, and also by building communities too. That is somewhat being lost now.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is Kit Cabello, and Kit is the founder of Hard Lens Media, which is a Chicago-based independent news network that has a daily news show starting at 9 a.m. Central Time every day over on YouTube. He's also a war veteran of the Iraq War, and he is an activist. I don't know if you would call yourself that. I'd call you an activist, at least for independent media, right? And yeah. So also fellow Chicagoan. So
I'm doing good, and my roots
together.
go deep. I could trace my origins of or my family being in Chicago from my great-grandfather's birth certificate. So from my great-grandfather, grandfather, my mom, myself, our roots go deep here in this city. It goes deep like deep dish pizza.
Well, now I think we probably triggered some people.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, people. I know we talked about that last time. The pizza, yeah, it got a lot of people up in arms. It's funny because people always, I get so many messages on Instagram where like, I'm coming to Chicago, where do I get pizza? And I'm like, you should probably have pizza.
Yeah, we got 4 different styles.
Try all of the different places.
To Nick's great, grand, and beautiful audience, listen very well. We just got more than deep dish pizza. We've got different styles of pizza because Chicago's that creative and that delicious and nutritious.
Nutritious, that's questionable, but delicious for sure. Wait, so what are the 4 styles? So I know deep dish,
and
tavern.
Why is it pot pie? Yes, pot pie pizza.
Pot pie, yeah. That is just that one right there. You can't move for the whole next day.
You got to go in hibernation pie. Like those bears in the woods.
Exactly. So I gotta ask you my question. I don't think so. To those listening, Kit was on maybe a year and a half ago. You were on one of my earlier episodes. Yeah. So I don't think I asked this at the time because I kind of got this question over time. I asked people what they wanted to be when they were growing up and how that changed, because I like to hear the grand stories of I want to be an actress, an actor, a writer, in the ballet, and then they get kind of like, railroaded into capitalism, and all of those dreams over time slowly fade for most of us. So I got to ask you the question: what did you want to be when you were a little kid? How'd that change over the years?
So as we all know, the end of the story is I'm running a media network with my colleague Daniel Lupker. Of course, we do a lot of content creation. I host my show Hard Lens Media 9 a.m. every Monday through Friday. I've done interviews with a whole lot of guests. I have a TV show on Can TV, and I'm a live stream on 5 different video platforms, which is something which has been a lot of hard work. And before then, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, did 2 tours in Iraq. And now I've done my fair share of work at retail because, whatever, here and there, we've all done it. But if you all truly want to know, this is going to catch everyone off guard. What I wanted to be before I grew up, or before I became the adult man I am today, I wanted to be a paleontologist and dig up dinosaur bones. And I was actually on not one, but 3 dinosaur expeditions when I was a kid. 2 to Montana and 1 to South Dakota. I was in Big Sky Country in South Dakota, and I've met some of the most leading paleontological minds in American history, Dr. Paul Sereno being one of them. I've had a lot of adventures, and it was something I wanted to do because I'll never forget when my grandpa, may he rest in peace, got me a toy dinosaur, because my mom was originally going to get me a Ninja Turtle, some sort of Ninja Turtle action set. He's like, no, get him this. And I was bitten by the bug, and they still hold a place in my heart. But yes, I was going to be a paleontologist.
I do remember you telling me that last time. the 3 digs, that's what clicked for me. So that's so cool, because that's another one of those things, right, where it's, you look at dinosaurs as a kid or space or something that's so big and grand, and you want to do something with that. And then before you know it, you're doing data
So
entry in a
do you want to hear the
spread
sad story then of why it
spreadsheet.
never came to fruition? Well, so
Yes,
unfortunately,
I
I
do.
did have a scholarship lined up, but it was like a competition. And unfortunately, I fell short of it. And while I did go get accepted to a couple of colleges and universities, what pushed me away was the bill. And I'm like, wait a minute. I got to do this and I got to take out student loans. And all of a sudden, like I just,
Mm.
even before I signed any, like, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I got to be paying this off for how long? Because my brain,
Reality
for some
check.
reason, as soon as I saw just what I had to sign away, my brain, my heart, my soul was like, wait, Kit, hold on. Outside, get outside. We need to have a talk. You need to talk to yourself and answer yourself at the same time. I don't care if you look crazy. And I told my mom, my grandpa, everybody there, like, look, I can't do this. And my mom just looked me straight in the eye and said, all right, but you're not hanging out at the house. You're not going to be here just laying on the couch watching TV or playing video games. You're not going to be hanging. You better do something. And so I was figuring out, like, what should I do? Get a job? And then that's when the Marine Corps came a knocking.
This is I feel like this is so many people's story though, right? Is like they have these you got to go to college voices in their head, even if they're like, did anyone in your family go to
Yes.
university and get a 4-year degree?
Even then, if they didn't go
Okay.
get the full on 4 year, they went to at least were there for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, I've had like a couple family members go to the Art Institute of Chicago. I've had a couple family members go to
Oh yeah.
medical school, law school, all that kind of stuff. And especially the one that went to medical school and the other one that went to law school, like, hey, I tip my hat off them, and they were able to, I think, pay off their debt. Yeah, pay off their debt. Yeah. So I
Half a
think
mil.
I'm
Oh
confident to
really?
say that they're good. That they're good to go. I mean, I don't, or either that as close to the finish line as possible in this crazy economy. So yeah, I choose not to really interview, but I'm just gonna
Right.
say I think they're a-okay. So which is a rarity because I went to college too after the Marine Corps, and I was able to have the Illinois Veterans Grant and the GI Bill pay for my education, which is again, but even then, look, even though I was taken care
Mm.
of, I still believe that student debt should be forgiven because I remember talking to some of my friends who were about to graduate from college, and I found out how much they're in debt there. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I
Yeah.
kept it to myself, but my brain was like, oh no, no. And
I know.
yeah, so I don't mean to cut
I
you off. Go ahead.
know. Oh no, I was just going to say the reason I ask is because like in my family, and we grew up,
Yeah.
you know Schaumburg, Rolling
Vaguely
Meadows
familiar.
area, out northwest suburbs, yeah. So I grew up, yeah, grew up out there, right? And so my dad built refrigerators in a factory. My mom worked at a toy store and
Oh,
then
okay.
worked at Jewel, the Osco, right? She was
Okay.
a meat market manager. And so working class, my dad lost his job when we were
Yeah.
young. The factory closed down, go figure. Now he's an electrician at a hospital. But they were like, you don't have to go to college. You don't have to go to college. And I was like, I want out of this like working class lifestyle, right? Like getting evicted, not knowing where meals were coming from. And at the time, like I didn't realize what was going on, but I look back and I'm like, oh, that's why we moved 8 times in my youth, right? But you think about these things, and I remember I was going to go to Columbia College, and I went down there, and I thought about the money because 4 years at Columbia College was going to
That was
be
the first college that accepted me.
150K
And
probably.
that's yeah, I know
Well, they
that, but
accepted
I was like,
everyone.
because I was looking at all the universities and colleges, and Columbia. When I saw that bill, I was like, oh no. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And then I had gone there for orientation like the week before, and I was just like, this doesn't feel right. And I wanted to go for filmmaking. So I was like, this doesn't feel right. So anyway, I went to Harper College, which is a community college out in the suburbs near me for 2 years, or 3 years, got my associate, worked. So I only have 2 years of university debt. But even that is, this is a funny thing. I actually owe more now than I borrowed because of interest.
Interest. Gotta love it. I
know.
It is.
That's the American dream. That's the American dream. And I actually love to get your take on this. I met a doctor who's in residency a couple weeks ago when I was down in St. Pete's for WWE. And yeah, it
I'm,
was so fun. We go every year. But
oh, me too.
speaking of
ECW,
childhood, I love that
WCW,
stuff.
WWF. I remember, like, we're part of that
Oh
privileged
yeah.
few that remember the Monday Night Wars. And I occasionally guest co-host on a wrestling
Oh yeah.
podcast now too. So that
You
here and
do?
there.
Wait, do you
I mean,
still
look, I mean,
watch?
as much time as I have, because like,
Yeah, me
look, I
too.
do I do a reaction channel that I'm part of, and I'm helping out other content creators. So it's like most of my work, like my social life is almost non-existent, but most of it's like about working and hitting the grind and doing all this. So when I
Mm,
do have some time, it's usually over the weekend. I try and at least keep my weekends free. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's smart. Well, it's WrestleMania season too, so it's always a fun
Magnifique,
time
magnifique,
to
magnifique.
tune in. Yeah. So this doctor, she was telling me she's going to be 250K in debt, right, for her whole degree. And I was thinking to myself, one of the arguments that people say, like against Medicare for all, or when they're basically talking shit about
Mhm.
Canada or other places in the world that have it or have their version of it, oh, they all have to wait in lines and there's not going to be enough doctors. And first, take the moral argument out of there of why does that mean that people shouldn't have health care? And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what if we actually incentivized people to go into healthcare by giving them more affordable opportunities? Because a lot of people that would want to be a doctor look at that bill and they're like, screw that. I don't have 250K that I'm going to pay back, even if I go to school for 8 years and then make a lot of money. So why aren't we incentivizing people to become nurses, to become teachers, to become healthcare workers? And then we could use that subsidy to help build up our healthcare providers. And then we can support something like Medicare for all without waiting lines, which I think is, a
I
weak
am
argument. What would you
100%
think of
for
something
it,
like
but I'll
that?
tell you why it's not going to happen right now unless we do have a major political change. And that is, we are a nation that's ruled over by bloodthirsty sociopaths who have access to gold plated healthcare and can get medical attention overseas as well. This is a country, the Democratic and Republican establishment have helped create a neoliberal nightmare that no longer incentivizes Americans to get higher education because of the college industrial complex to keep us in debt, because the debt is what also causes people not to be motivated to push forward. Because after a while, the average person, we all get to our own finish line at our own pace. What works for you, Nick, might not work for me. And what works for me, Nick, won't work for you. And same goes for the
Mm-hmm.
audience, who's ever's watching. Your method of getting to the finish line is going to be vastly different than the person to your left and right. And so when you have a country in which politicians waste our money on endless war, we don't have anything advancing our infrastructure. We have crumbling cities. We have lead in our drinking water. We have the most dangerous. We have the most dangerous
Right here in
wildfire in
Chicago.
U.S. history impact the people of Maui, where they get a one-time $700 payment. When this country is being led by senators and House representatives and presidents who only work for their donors, their last thought is ever uplifting or lowering the ladder for the people that they're supposed to govern and rule over, because of lobbying groups, because of corporations, because of the banks, and how much they can bleed us dry. The whole idea of this country right now is to keep everybody on the low, to keep everyone smart enough to run the machines, dumb enough not to ask questions. Make sure you don't do anything stupid, and your plan is don't get sick, don't die. And so when there is a person who wants to go to higher education to become a doctor or become of any other high profession, at this point, I would say go overseas where it's either free or affordable. And don't be intertwined or wrapped into the college industrial complex. And if you got a full-on scholarship that's going to cover you, then go for it. But you better keep your nose in the books and just do that, so that one, you don't lose a scholarship, and two, you walk out with $0 and 0 cents in debt. So I like your plan, Nick, but the problem is you have the politicians that won't implement it, because then all of a sudden the old guard is going to have to realize that there are new people coming in with new ideas to improve the lives of the people. And that's why we have to break this system down. It
It's
can
never
look,
going to
change
happen.
does happen.
It's
It's
never
just
going to
not going to
happen.
happen overnight. But if we remain as we are, we're going to be the gradual decline. We are going to become like Byzantium. The United States will become like the Byzantine Empire. And for those who don't know who the Byzantines are, They were the Eastern Romans. Now, they outlived the Western Roman Empire, but they had a gradual decline, a slow death. So all that remained was the city of Constantinople until the Ottoman Turks came and knocking with the cannon.
Yeah. And why was that? Because they spread the empire too thin.
Well, also
it's
it's because
funny.
they had unnecessary wars. They had unchecked corruption. And after a while, all that mismanagement, all these endless wars, bled the nation dry, left the people behind, and it just all what remained of the great Roman Empire was one city called Constantinople.
Yeah. And that's actually something I've been comparing, go figure, reality TV to, because that's also when they started the gladiator games, or at least took them to the extremes of like man versus animal, and then the circus type events, and getting people to like point fingers and laugh at each other. And I feel like that's kind of what reality TV is becoming, because it's so prevalent right now. But it's all of us like watching somebody on TV that we think is real, that we relate to, and then we're triggered by them, and then we're mean to them, and then we all start fighting about who's genuine on this show, or who's being real, or who's an asshole or a villain, and all of this stuff. Yeah. But it's all like us turning against each other and being entertained by it. It's crazy.
It's also
like
human nature. I mean, human beings are social animals. We like to observe things. We like to look at things. We like to talk about things. I think, unfortunately, in this day and age, with the internet and the way technology is, and social media too, it's the Pandora's box. And I don't think we were ready for this amount of power that is being presented before us. I mean, there's no need to become a Luddite. There's no need to become anti-technology or anything like that. It's just, it's out there now, and we as a species are trying to adapt with something that's moving faster than we are. And this is not how human beings operate. Like, take, for example, you mentioned reality TV. That was something. Then there's also the in real life streamers who stream their lives 24/7. Now, I don't know about you, but I think we both can agree there has to be a moment where you got to turn these cameras off and be like, I can't be in front of this camera, because either I'm going to say something stupid, or something stupid's going to happen to me, or either I'm going to be burnt out, because having the lens on you all that time does something up here. And then if we look at relationships too, such as Tinder and everything else. I mean, I don't know if people use Tinder anymore, but let's yeah, whatever.
I think it's come full circle, and some people do.
You're getting that instant gratification, but are you really connecting with that person? Because human beings, when we evolved, when we were walking out of Africa and expanding the great human civilization all across the world, we did so through cooperation, communication. Yes, unfortunately through warfare too. But we as a people, we as a united species, we're able to thrive by speaking and building communications, and also by building communities too. That is somewhat being lost now. It is. And for a social animal like us, right now, we are put in a really weird spot to where it is impossible to connect with somebody right now. And I worry about this next generation that's coming up, Gen Alpha, and they're going to be the first generation to really be with social media. Like you and I, we remember time before social media came, and Gen Z to an extent has that. Yeah. Gen Z might be the last generation to really remember what it was like before technology became as it is. Okay. And Gen Z was exposed to more stuff than we are. Gen Alpha will have it in their lives, and that is going to be a breakaway. Yeah. Go ahead.
They'll have it. They might have it in their head if Neuralink takes off. I mean, I just saw last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, the first human implant has happened. They're growing up with AI, which is crazy. And another thing I think about that they're growing up with is the metaverse, right? Or these complete 3D virtual reality spaces. And it's got to be to the point where it's kind of normalizing, right? Like, didn't Apple just have their new one come out? And it's like, what are we doing? Where's the lines? Like, where are we drawing a line between what's real and what's not, and what's acceptable and what's not? And this is my biggest takeaway with AI, because I work with AI. I've used AI, ChatGPT, all of that stuff. But what's scary to me is we don't have any ethical considerations around it, and nobody seems to be wanting to have that conversation where we say, this is where it goes too far, this is where we stop. And that's what's kind of scary to me about the new generations, because they're growing up without any ethics
You
around
know,
this type of technology.
when it comes down to artificial intelligence, I think there's no way we can really put it away now. I mean, it's already out there, and any person, if they really want to, if they know how to code
Mm-hmm.
or run an AI program, I mean, they're going to use it, create it, and a company will definitely find a way to profit off of it. I don't want to say that we're ending into the world of Blade Runner or Blade Runner 2049 or anything of that nature, but it seems inevitable, and it's going to come at a cost of human connection. Us as a species, we have to communicate and stay together.
Mm-hmm.
But because with Gen Alpha coming in here, especially with the possibility of getting AI implemented in their brain, or either that, maybe having AI teachers, there is always a cost of this technology and what it means for us to go forward and how we can function. Because if it's going to upend everything that maybe boomers, Xers, millennials, and Gen Z to an extent, no, I mean, then how do you build an economy? How do you build a nation? If people are afraid to communicate even face to face, or either that, have normal relationships, or have these, because I saw on the train too, somebody had one of those Google or Apple goggle things, and they were doing this, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
am I in an episode of The Outer Limits or of The Twilight Zone? Because I remember as a kid. Yes, exactly. Because I remember
Or Black Mirror.
I would watch The Outer Limits from time to time, or The Twilight Zone. And if it ever got to if they had a future episode where humans and technology are intertwined, what's real and what's not, I'd always say in the back of my mind, we're too smart to ever let that happen to us. And oh my God, am I wrong? I hope
I used to think
we
that too.
never, ever, and I mean ever, go down that path. And yet here we are. Here we are.
Well, you know what I've been. This is
Oh,
what I've been talking
1984.
about
Gotta love it.
nonstop
Gotta
lately.
love it.
1984. This I keep it back here as a reminder, but it's I was actually debating with a friend who's on the left in theory, but just he listens too, so I want to be I don't want to talk shit, but he knows I give him shit about it anyway. But I told him, you got to go back and reread this book, because authoritarianism is coming from Joe Biden's Democratic Party right now, right? And this is the kind of stuff that gets you into these dystopian type nightmares. And with AI and the evolution of the metaverse and virtual reality and stuff, we're all just kind of it's like the end of Wall-E.
I have seen
where we're
that
all just
movie,
sitting
and it
there.
is a
Have you ever seen that movie?
rather frightening situation in which you have the people, but it kind of is
Yeah.
going that way, where you have people just stuck in their chair, they're watching the stuff on the TV or their eyes, and they're not looking around their surroundings. And sometimes even I have to stop and look around, wait a minute, what's actually happening? Because you mentioned 1954. My book is Fahrenheit 451. That's my book. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's that one
Fahrenheit
too. That was my
451
favorite in high
or
school.
Brave New World. And I recently went to see the movie Godzilla -1, right? And it was the first time in a long time, because I've been going through a lot of stuff this past year, this stuff here and there. And I was able to have some time to myself, which is a rarity. And I said, I'm going to see Godzilla -1 before it's kicked out of theaters. I'm going to get a big glass of beer at AMC River East 21. I'm going to get a big jug of popcorn and get a shot of whiskey, and I'm going to watch this movie. So I decided to do something I haven't done in a long time, and that, as a kid, take the Orange Line and walk down State Street, walk down Michigan Avenue, walk to AMC River East 21. And it was fun. It was the first time in a long time I could actually breathe, because you kind of know what some of the stuff I've been going through. So, it was the first time in a long time I was able to have some time to myself, just for me. And I was looking around and how different Chicago is. State Street businesses and restaurants closed or either that empty, walking down Michigan Avenue. And I'm thinking, what the hell happened? And then even walking the River East 21, look, it did cost me more than $20, because I remember as a kid, good old Andrew Jackson could get me everything. I needed Andrew Jackson plus a Hamilton, 2 Andrew Jacksons and a Hamilton, to really enjoy things because of inflation. Thanks, Joe Biden. When you see your surroundings, you realize, how did it get this way? It's because of polite neoliberal politics. When you have politicians that say, oh, geez, we want to do this and that, and everything gradually changes, and you realize that the whole world happens. It adapts, it changes because of the inaction of our leaders that allow us to think that everything's fine, until you realize, oh my God, I am the frog that is slowly being boiled in the boiling pot of water, that's slowly being boiled alive.
And I totally agree. And I feel like I'm for probably, I think 2020 was the breaking point for me with electoral politics after the Bernie fiasco. I had strangers in my house trying to convince them that they should be thinking about Bernie as a candidate, volunteering, giving, speeches, for lack of a better word, busting my butt
Mm-hmm.
to try and get that person elected because I felt like I believed in him and his policies and us as a collective group. But the realization for me was not only did he tuck his tail and go home, the whole movement did. Everybody did. My friends did. My family did. Everyone did. And that's where I'm like, we're not just in the boiling water or the pot with the boiling water. The water's boiling and we're all just sitting there being like,
Mm-hmm.
getting hot in here. No, I think it's okay. And I just don't know what it's going to take to evangelize people to stand up and say enough is enough on things. Like Joe Biden is, God bless him. Thank you for your 100 years of service. Like go to the beach, go to the retirement home, go be with your family. Like you shouldn't be doing this. It's like, it's best case scenario elder abuse, in my opinion. And now it's like everybody's just neutered because of Trump, and everybody's so scared of Trump, and we just got to beat Trump, even if we're gonna have a president who can't be fit to stand an investigation or a trial or anything. It's like, what?
All right, so
Hello,
probably
is
this might
anyone
anger
else
a
seeing
lot of your
this?
audience, but I'm going to. But if I would not be who I am without my show and my audience. So I'm just going to say this: I do not fear a Trump presidency because I know what to expect from Donald Trump. I do fear the fact that you have neoliberal Democrats and neoconservative Republicans implementing policies at the behest of bankers, corporations, because our politicians do not. Yeah, yeah. While we ought, yeah,
While
yeah,
we
yeah.
all
While,
watch
while
the
we're all
show,
watching the show,
we're
because
all
look, here's the
watching the
thing:
Trump show.
Trump.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting him to be any different than any other politician. The only thing is what I give credit to Trump for, and I will explain these reasonings. He has been the most transparent president in American history, at least from my eyes. Now, hold on, and I'll explain why. Despite his best efforts, and number
Despite his
two,
best efforts.
while he's still president, that's not going to stop the other politicians and jagoff leaders from still doing the work at the behest of their donors and Wall Street and big banks. Now, let me explain why Trump is the most transparent president in U.S. history. Because he gave away the secret sauce. First, in 2016, during the first Republican primary debate, with I think 12 candidates or 15 candidates around the debate stage, the question of money in politics or getting donations from corporate donors came up, and Trump said, "Yeah, I gave money to these people." The announcer was like, well, "What do you mean?" He says, Trump said, "I give these people money and they do what I say." Now, before anyone says, "Well, that's terrible, Kit, because that's Trump." Well, Trump is just one person. You do realize that your favorite lawmaker, your favorite dynastic politician family, political family, no matter what state you live in, blue or red, no matter who you voted for, blue or red, took corporate donations from Wall Street, big banks, and other high interest lobby groups, who in turn, again, once elected in office, your U.S. Senator or U.S. House Representative, 90% of the time, they're calling their donors, asking for more money so they can get ready to get reelected in office, so they can write legislation to work for their donors, not the voters, not you. They tricked all of you into thinking that they respect you. They don't respect you. They don't like you. They don't think about you. It's like being in an abusive relationship. And then once they get back into office again, you know what they're doing? They're going back on the phone, calling their donors for more money. Plus, I encourage your audience to check out the Twitter account Unusual Whales and check them out, because there you'll find out where your favorite Democratic lawmaker in the U.S. Senate and House or your favorite Republican lawmaker in the U.S. Senate and House are doing in regards to insider trading. You are at the back of the line. And so I'm just going to say this controversial statement in a 3, 2, 1. There are worse people in Washington, D.C. than Donald Trump. He's been upfront with his BS. When asked about why we're in Syria, any other U.S. Exactly. Thank you.
For the
Reagan,
oil.
Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Barack Obama, Biden. If that question was presented before them, we're here to help out the people, build up their democracy, spread democratic values. Trump said, "We're here for the oil." The whole establishment collectively took a dump when Trump said that out, because he gave away the secret sauce. So Trump says horrible things on Twitter. Guess what? I've met people worse than Donald Trump who really go above and beyond in regards to their statements, okay? Trump is not the problem. The problem is the people who've been running the show in regards to so we can get Trump. You got to look at the architects. Yes.
That make him look, the fact that they make him look like he's worthy, or that he's so
that
different,
that
or
he's
that he's
Hitler
such a
2.0.
monkey
That's
wrench
because
in the
people are calling him the
establishment.
next Hitler,
And
to which I have to push back and
yeah,
say, okay, Donald Trump's a lot of things. Yes, he's probably going to be doing his own crazy thing with war or whatever, or the economy, whatever. But we've had sitting U.S. presidents sign genocidal orders for the extermination of the Native American people. And again, just to everyone calm down for a second. Hear me out here. During the Nuremberg trials, when Allied prosecutors were confronting the German SS officers and of the Third Reich, say, how could you do this? What possessed you to do? When they were asking them about the final solution, right? Some German officers, well, we learned it from the Americans and how you guys handled your solution with the Native Americans. Where'd you learn to smoke? I learned it from you, Dad. So just long story short about Trump, I'm not worried about his presidency. I'm not worried about him getting reelected. I am worried about the slow path to dictatorship and censorship that's being done with a polite neoliberal smile. I'm worried about the fact of what we are giving up because we're afraid of Trump, the orange boogeyman. I don't let that man live rent-free in my head. I can't control how this election is going to play out. I do hope that people do wake up and realize that voting Democrat or Republican is just a participation event, and that you are the least of the concern. You won't have a seat at the table. And just because Biden gets elected in office, great. We have the oldest sitting president in U.S. history who doesn't know anything about anything anymore. He's a senile old man. He's got to go.
It's bad. Like with him, it's bad. I on the Trump thing. So I think Trump is.
I don't think he is.
Like I think he has things he's smart at. I think he's smart about marketing. But like I remember there was this stint in his first presidency, and I still laugh at these videos. That's the thing. Trump makes me laugh. I think he's a buffoon in so many ways, but he makes me laugh because it's like, is this real? Like I look around, I'm like, is this real? And he literally thought that stealth planes were literally invisible, to the point where there's clips of him where he's talking about, do you see the plane? It's stealth, right? And then he looks at the general next to him or whoever, is like,
yeah,
it's stealth, right? Like invisible, you can't see it. And they're like, yes, sir, it's stealth. But obviously to radars, it's not literally an invisible plane. But he actually believed it was an invisible plane.
That's
and
great.
There's multiple clips at multiple times.
That's
so
great.
The guy is not.
I got to confirm if this story is real or not, because, okay, so just for context, all right, I have to double check this, but all right, this is something that I'm remembering, especially when I did my radio show, because I used to be on radio back in the day. 2017 when we had a radio show.
Oh wow, okay.
It was during those hurricanes that were impacting Florida in 2017. I think Trump was president. And I think Trump was the one who said, well, why don't we just shoot a nuke at the hurricane? Now, I don't know if he really said that or not.
Yeah.
That's right. But if he did, you know what? I'll give him 7.7 out of 10 for an effort to try. It's like, why don't we shoot a nuke at it? It's like, you know what, buddy? Bring it fresh. But we can't do that, Mr. President. That's not going to help stop the hurricane. It's like, all right, whatever. What other president would do that?
Yeah. It's why. And that's the thing. Like when he says the quiet part out loud, or he lets you in on it, it's not on purpose. He doesn't have that filter, or that I should say this or shouldn't say this in given situations. And that's what people like about him. But also people have got to look at that and be like, man, this guy's kind of unhinged. He really doesn't. He doesn't know that there's not an invisible plane next to him right now.
I'll give a pass to that because it's hilarious. But it's, when I because people said, well, Trump's an idiot. I'm like, first of all, the man survived bankruptcy laws. He was able to use what the neoliberal Democrats and neoconservative Republicans created in order to benefit himself. All right. And now this is no excuse of his actions. But when he was confronted about not paying his taxes, Trump, I think Dave Chappelle did a great skit on this on SNL. I was like, well, Trump said, well, I know you're never going to undo this because your donors won't let you. So Trump was able to use what the quote unquote smart and articulate politicians created. So just because you see Clinton or Biden or Obama on stage, or any other Democrat or Republican politician on stage, remember, they wrote the laws that Donald Trump took advantage of, and that all the other corporate donors and people who buy our politicians use. So before we start vilifying Trump, Remember, he didn't build the system, but he knew how to take advantage of it. Because no, he's not. Yeah,
And
they all do it.
He's not the only one. They all do
And that's
it.
why they do the
They write
insider
the laws for
trading.
themselves.
Nancy Pelosi made $1,400,000 this month for her NVIDIA trade sales. Now, for those who say Nancy's a brave woman, she's a corrupt politician doing insider trading. If you or your viewing, exactly. And if
Getting
you or your viewing audience did even a fraction of what she did in regards to how she's able to do insider trading, she only gets a slap on the wrist. Anyone watching this, if you tried to do that, probably not.
Did she even get a slap on the wrist?
She probably got a memo and just spit it in and just threw in the garbage can. If any of you were to go do that, or I'm not seeing the light of day ever again. Never.
No, it's grotesque. And so sometimes I get this, and I'm curious your take on this. I feel like I'm screaming at the top of my lungs about corruption all the time to my friends and family. A lot of times they don't even want to hear it anymore. But it's I can't help when I see something wrong to say something and to talk about it and evangelize it and just lead on it, right? Be a lead. I don't want to do it. I just can't unsee this stuff. But so many people want to operate, and this is, I say this to some people in my life too. I'm like, you want to operate within the corrupt system that we have instead of stepping out and saying that's a corrupt system and that's not how it's supposed to be. And I say you're living in a sandbox, but you don't realize that sandbox actually in the middle of a desert. And there's so many other opportunities that we could take and other angles to take. And I don't even want to have a conversation with someone that wants to like work within the bullshit that we have, because it's never going to change. It's rotten at the core. It's going to continue to rot. You can try and cut that piece of rot out of the potato or out of the piece of fruit or whatever, but it's still going to rot, right? You can't get rid of it. And I feel like that's kind of where I get frustrated and where I get defeated, because I just don't see the groundswell of people wanting to, first of all, even realizing what's going on. Second of all, wanting to activate over it. And I was just talking to, so I have a friend on the UCAN board who's a director at the Teamsters, and we've been texting back and forth about this stuff. And I said, the problem that I have with, organizing sometimes, like with Reality Cast and trying to organize these people to get us to either join SAG or form our own union. The problem that I have there is like, I don't know how people get activated long-term, right? Like they'll get activated on an issue, or we'll end up with like another women's march for 2 years that isn't actually marching for anything. And that movement right there, so this is what I said to someone else, all over the place. He said, do you think if Trump wins, first we were joking about what if Hillary loses to Trump again, if something happens with Joe stepping aside or whatever. But he's like, do you think we'd get a January 6th from the liberals? And I said, I think that was the woman's
It was, and it fizzled out. Yeah.
Like, and I supported it, but like, why weren't we codifying Roe v. Wade, or we're not leaving the streets?
Well,
you know what I mean? Codify Roe v. Wade, or we're not leaving the streets. Could be for something.
The problem is the reason why I think there's not a long-term activation, because even I was part of an activist group called Wolfpack, and I was calling to get money out of politics. It was from TYT, and we got Illinois to become the third state to call for an Article 5 convention to get money out of politics. And so we were the state that really led the charge. And myself, I came up with this idea, like, okay, we're the best team there is. We're the best. We're the greatest ever. We're just that great. And so I came up with the decision of like, okay, let's set up teams to go to our neighboring states, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Missouri, Iowa, Mississippi, all that. Let's go to all the neighboring states of Illinois, set up the teams there, build them up. So then that way the Midwest can be the center. I was told that was not a good idea by Wolfpack leadership. Because they tried it before and it didn't work. And I was like, if you have an army, you got to give them something to fight. It's like with Genghis Khan or Julius Caesar. You got to keep your legions, your horde together. You got to give them something to fight, and you got to explain to your warriors, your legionnaires, those who will fight for you, who's the enemy and why we must stick together and what we must do. You just can't have a lull moment. You can't just be a one issue thing. You have to have, here's the primary thing, here's secondary objective, here's third objective, here's all of our objectives to keep on going forward. Yeah. And the problem with the movements here in this country is that they've been intertwined by either Democratic insiders or Republican insiders. And with the Women's March, you would think that they would be all up in arms and be, really be strong to get Roe v. Wade to be codified. The problem why it won't be codified and why a lot of these progressive or liberal movements get co-opted by the Democratic Party is because you want to hold the Democratic Party, Democratic insiders want to hold people back, because if you codify Roe v. Wade, we can't fundraise anymore. We can't send out those scary emails like, guys, this is serious. A woman's right to choose will disappear. So donate to me $15. Obama had a majority in the Senate and House, the presidency itself, and he could have codified Roe v. Wade, but he said, folks, it's not politically expedient at this time. And they also had the perfect scapegoat, blue dog Democrats. And then they tell you, well, if you vote harder next time, we might get a real progressive in that office. So in other words, you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And to which I got to say to a lot of the
frustrating too.
The people who wore the pink hats, where I remember all the protests that I used to cover, because there was a point where I stopped covering. I was like, I told Daniel, we can't go out here anymore. These people are wasting our time. You're protesting in front of a private building across the water. Are you going to give that same energy to your U.S. senator or U.S. House representative? No. So exactly.
But you know why? Because there's no leadership. There's no one that's saying, there's no one that is harnessing that energy and saying, we're going to do this. And this, that was the whole thing. I remember being on the Red Line, because I used to live in Lincoln Park when the Women's March, the first one, was happening. And I couldn't get on a train. There were so many people heading down to the city, right? And all I could think about is I was like, what would happen if there was a leader to harness these people to go march for something? And that's what was so frustrating in 2020 about Bernie's campaign too, is sitting there. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I remember it was the day before lockdowns. It was the day after St. Patrick's Day, the final debate, Joe Biden versus Bernie. And I watched it. I had my friend come over. We watched it. And I was like,
no,
he's not even giving him a knockout punch. We're in the middle of a pandemic, a pandemic is here. We're all getting shut down. Nobody has health care. Everybody's losing their jobs. All he had to do was go up there and be like, Joe, you said you're against Medicare for all. I'm saying anybody can get sick. People are losing their jobs. Everybody deserves health care, so that if you catch COVID, you're going to be taken care of. And if you know someone who has COVID, you can interact with them and family and all this stuff. And he didn't do any of it. And he could have said, I'm for Medicare for all. I have been my whole career. Joe, we're in the middle of a pandemic. What are you going to do about it? And he would have stumbled over it and said Biden care, which went to the wayside the moment he got elected, which was the public option. And we got nothing. And so it's like, then that I couldn't believe how quickly the left fell apart, especially over Force the Vote, which I had signs up in my window at the time over Force the Vote. And it was, and now the left, there's so much infighting, even in the independent media scene, there's so much infighting. And I struggle to see, like, without a leader and without a list of demands, what's going to happen. We're just going to keep sleepwalking into the authoritarianism that's coming from the left.
I would say it's not a leadership problem. You know what the problem is right now is we have a lot of managers. We have a lot of managers and a lot of mid managers and HR reps. And that's why there's no leadership. That's why there's no real initiative. Because if the progressive movement, if independents, and I'm even including conservatives too, if people were really to unite, it would put the establishment in a very screwed up spot. Most notably, I think the one point where the establishment realized that they were screwed, it was 2012, the March on Wall Street. No, the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street. Sorry,
Occupy Wall Street.
Moment.
Yeah.
Occupy Wall Street. And you had a lot of people agreeing, like, hey, Wall Street is really screwing us over. And what did the establishment do? And this is where they get very insidious. And yes, they do this. They bring in operatives or people to work to subvert or either that pull out the teeth of said organizations. And I saw a lot of activist groups here in Chicago from 2017 and through 2020. And I noticed as time went on, they were losing their teeth. They were losing their any kind of real message of trying to, hey, let's get ready for 2018. Yep. Let's get ready for 2020. And the problem was, I think we're all blinded by Bernie Sanders in 2020, by his actions in 2016, that we didn't realize that the person who was going to cut us off was going to be Bernie himself. Because especially when he started calling Biden his good friend, I'm like, you're the general and you're saying that you're opposing general on the other side is your friend, that goes against everything, against
I think it's
the art
because
of war, or
he
the
and
prince. That goes against any kind of, like, 'cause I served 2 tours in Iraq. I served 4 years in the military. I know one thing: if you have an enemy, your objective is to defeat your enemy. Now, I get in politics that you have to build coalitions afterwards, but you don't be saying, my good friend, my good friend. Your good friend Joe Biden was against busing and desegregation. Your good friend Joe Biden was against a woman's right to choose. Your good friend Joe Biden gave a eulogy to Strom Thurmond, a Republican segregationist. Your good friend Joe Biden helped write the crime bill. And Bill Clinton, who, mind you, I'm not a fan of, even apologized for his actions for the crime. Biden's never apologized. Biden said he'd gladly prostitute himself to
he did that.
corporations. So I don't want to. Yeah, he couldn't wait to.
Oh, he couldn't wait to. He couldn't wait to grow up and get
Exactly.
that
So
corporate
the
money. There's
thing is,
videos of him saying that.
there will be a movement, and there will be leaders. It's just, it cannot be connected to DC, and this is where I think citizen ballot initiatives come into play. And we got to start building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C., and to where the states, the individuals, have to go on the arduous task, and it'll be an uphill fight to really hold D.C. accountable. And one of it is getting money out of politics and calling for a citizen ballot initiative, 50 state initiative, to call for the abolition of all political parties.
Oh, that would be. I don't know.
I know,
I would love that,
but
but we're so tribal
it's
right
an
now. It's
option in
like,
which we can cripple the two-party system, and it's not an easy thing, because only 23 states are citizen ballot initiative states. The rest are not, and those that are citizen ballot initiative states, there has been a. Yes, let me go ahead and get
what
the
is
full-on
that? Can you
proper
explain that to
definition of
people?
citizen ballot initiative states. And Illinois is a citizen ballot initiative state as well. Citizen ballot initiatives. So here's what they are. Now, oops. Well done. All right. So it's an initiative, and an initiative is a means through which any citizen or organization may gather a predetermined number of signatures to qualify a measure to be placed on a ballot and be voted upon in a future election. These may be further divided into constitutional amendments or statutory amendments. So that means you don't need your politicians. You go to the ballot if you want to legalize cannabis, or, dare I say, maybe Medicare for all at the state level, or anything else, protecting women's right to choose at the state level, right? That means you, the citizen, make the choice. And before anyone says, well, gee, what about red states? Well, Kentucky, a red state, voted to preserve a woman's right to choose. Ohio, too.
And let these
Yep.
states do what they want to do. That's democracy. That's
wait, correction. It's
I
not
do support
Kentucky. It was
ballot.
Ohio. And then, of course, now again, there's again, these are states in which protecting a woman's right to choose, or either that, protecting the voters' right to make their choice. So before anyone says, well, what about red states or blue states? Let the voters pick. People are rational if you look past the corporate media propaganda. And there's, again, Illinois, we are an amendment state, so that means we can provide, Illinois provides citizen-initiated constitutional amendments, so we can pull that off. Same thing for Mississippi, same thing for Florida. Amendment, statute, or veto referendum, California, Nevada, Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, Montana, Michigan, and Massachusetts. And the others are Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Alaska, and the great state of Maine. There you go. So only a few states are, citizen ballot initiative states. The rest need to get on that level so that we can, dare I say it, have Medicare for all, student debt forgiveness, cannabis legalization, a woman's right to be protected so that she doesn't, have to suffer under draconian rules because our Supreme Court is just asinine. So, yeah.
I don't know how anyone takes the Supreme Court seriously anymore. I don't even. I think they're in on it, right? It's like they're all in on it. George Carlin says, and Jimmy Dore says, it's a big fucking club. I'm adding the F word, where it's a big club and we're not in it. And I think it's like, until we take back our power, it's just going to continue to be a society that's sleepwalking into giving up our freedoms, and whatever that looks like. And that's the thing that, I really struggle. Let's take cognitive ability out of the Trump and Biden conversation, and people who are cheering on all the indictments and all the removing Trump from ballots in Colorado and all this stuff. It's like, I just really want them to stop for a second and think
Oh,
about how this would be if it was reversed. And if it was Trump doing this to Biden or doing it to his political opponent. And then people, well, we should let the legal system play it, then let the legal system play it out. But like, you can't have states removing candidates from the ballot based on arbitrary determinations of an insurrection or whatever they're saying this is, and just beat them at the ballot box. If you're so confident in Bidenomics, you're so confident in propping him up as the candidate or whomever you end up doing. If Trump is so bad, anything should be better than him. But you're still trying to cheat in 2024 to do that. And again, let it play out in court. But if he gets indicted or he gets convicted of an insurrection or whatever, fine. We've got, what is it, the 14th Amendment? I forget which amendment it is. It's just let it play out. Beat him at the ballot box, beat him on policy, beat him by actually making people's lives better. And that's where it's like, we're not even having conversations about policy.
The thing is, before Trump, all this talk about removing Trump off the ballot, this isn't the first time it's happened. It's happened under Democratic and Republican administrations where I've interviewed Green Party candidates, socialist candidates, independent candidates, libertarian candidates, no matter what level of office they're running for, federal, state, county, or city, where they were kicked off the ballot, where they were removed from the debate stage by both Democratic and Republican politicians. So, hey, bipartisanship, it does work, but not in the way you think, folks. It works to control their neoliberal narrative. So Trump being kicked off the ballot, I'm against that. If you're afraid of Trump, face him. If you think your guy is better, if you think old dog Biden's got that dog in him still, then have him debate Trump. Have him face off against him. By removing Trump from the ballot, you know what you're saying to me? It means you're not confident in your guy winning. Don't give me the excuse of the law. If you think Biden or any Democrat can do it, face off against him. Embarrass him on national TV.
Yep.
Out debate him. Out maneuver him. Out speak him. Do it. But by not doing it, it tells me that people are afraid and are trying to mentally create their own reality in which they're trying to say, well, he's got to go because he did this or that. No, first of all, I could care less about January 6th, okay? It was a stupid event that was blown out of proportion and still is to this day. As for, the Trump indictments, he knew how he turned that around. He turned his mugshot into merch. Any other politician would have been embarrassed. Yes. Any other politician would have been embarrassed or drop out of the race. Trump? No. He's been in show business. This isn't his first rodeo show, nor will it be his last. You think you're going to embarrass him? I see anyone who's saying, oh, the walls are closing in on Trump, or Trump's going to go to jail, or this is going to happen to him. You guys are acting like Wile E. Coyote going after the Roadrunner. And now everyone's talking about this thing that's happening in Georgia. And I said, for that attorney general, I think that, what was it, an attorney general yeah, the attorney.
I think it was
because right now there's that love triangle that she is in with the other guy, and I remember saying when that story broke, I said because this was like the Harvey Dent situation from The Dark Knight, like what the mayor was saying. Yeah. Yourself become the villain, but there was more to that. Before that, I think it was a little bit after that speech when they arrested all the criminals and the mayor went to speak to Harvey Dent and says, are you ready for this? Because you better be ready. Politicians, journalists, they better make sure that you're squeaky clean. And I said this on my show. You better hope that this lady, she has no skeletons in her closet, that she doesn't do any kind of underhanded deals or anything like that. Because if Trump walks away from this thing, he will be twice as strong, and he's going to use it as political ammunition, and it'll galvanize his supporters. And what did we find out? Turns out she has a little love relationship with the lead prosecutor, who doesn't even have a history of prosecuting people like Donald Trump, but he has a relationship with her, and they went on a nice little cruise vacation, went to some nice restaurants. How the fact that this case hasn't been thrown out yet, or there's potential talk of it will be, it is going to be a very interesting subject to talk about, because Trump, if he walks away from that, is going to be so more exponentially more powerful. Yes.
All of everything else. That's what I think people don't quite understand. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people just kind of live their lives and pop around every 4 years. And I guess that's a luxury and a curse, right? If you cannot care about politics, or you choose not to care about politics, that's great for you. Not so good for the people that do. But I feel like there's not a real understanding of how much support he has. And you look at the polls, and he's up in all the swing states, and people who will love to use a poll when Trump is losing now are like, well, the polls aren't accurate. Well, when the polls aren't accurate or have proven to not be accurate, it's actually because Trump has
Mhm.
more support. That's what happened in each of the last two elections. So yeah, I guess what I'm going at with that is he is powerful. And that's why you need someone powerful that can stand up to him.
Mhm.
And everybody knows that he's corrupt. Everybody knows that he's a cheat with Trump University. Everybody knows he's a womanizer. Everybody knows, like, all this stuff we know. And just to keep piling on here and realize, like, they don't care. They want someone who's going to throw a monkey wrench into the
Mhm.
system that is not working for them. They want a liar who's going to come out and say people are liars and never deny that he's one himself. Like, he embraces it, and the people like the
Mhm.
authenticity even if they don't like him. And that's what I don't think people get. And his authenticity is like,
Mhm.
Trump's a Looney Tune also, by the way. But there's a authenticity about it. It's like he's not pretending not to be. He's never really pretended to
Mhm.
be something that he's not. And so when someone
Believe me,
tells
yeah.
you who they are and then you believe them, you can kind of accept them. And I think that's where people are, where they're just like, this isn't working for me. And he's the only one saying something's wrong here with the establishment. I don't know if he's going to do anything, but at least he's saying
I
it.
think
And I think
people
that's a big
people
difference that people
want
don't
to
get.
have a leader that will fight for them, and the reason why Trump is able to keep his people together is, unlike Bernie Sanders, unlike AOC, unlike the Squad, unlike all these jagoff politicians, and especially in the Democratic Party, um, Trump kept his political organization as movement together. He kept his people together. The Democratic Party, the progressive movement, broke and fractured.
That's
Trump
good point.
kept his thing together. He showed up and he had to fight tooth and nail to regain control of the MAGA movement. So that way, DeSantis or anybody else that was coming after him wouldn't control it. And the thing is, the Republican establishment, everybody after him, anyone that would make an impact, and they all fizzled away. They all disappeared. And what? Yeah,
Yeah. Oh no, Nikki Haley's
yeah,
still
which is
celebrating not
like how,
winning anything. Like, I'm like, what the? I feel
exactly, and I
crazy
am
when
I
I
am
listen to
actually
her
secretly
talk.
looking forward to South Carolina's primary, just so I can laugh. Just because if she loses South Carolina, her home state, it's like, really, Nikki, come on, you didn't win anything. Yeah. Oh, she will. Oh, she
Which
will.
she
I
will.
actually made a joke
She
on my show, like,
will.
Trump supporters, listen, I need a laugh. I know we're not going to agree on everything, but I don't care what you do. All you people turn out to vote, because with the fact that when Trump comes off more sane in regards to the conflict in Ukraine in comparison to Nikki Haley, it's like, okay, she's calling for not only more war funding in for Ukraine, but also in Gaza, Yemen, and trying to instigate stuff between China and Taiwan. I'm like, Jesus, lady, stop foaming at the mouth.
And
Mhm.
you're a Marine, right? You're a veteran. So let me ask you, I didn't expect to ask you this, but what do you think about, obviously we have all of these wars, but isn't
Yeah.
military recruitment is down, right? And
Mhm.
so we're expanding wars and we're giving weapons to anybody who wants them. And we're
Mhm.
expanding militarily with our bases. We're saber rattling with China. We're saber rattling with Russia. We're funding Ukraine. We're funding Israel. We're saber rattling all over. I see homeless people outside all the time, and
Yeah.
plenty of hungry people as well. And I think we could take, the 500,000 or how
Mm,
many homeless people do we have?
Number 653,104, and the number's rising.
That's that is unfortunate. That's
Yeah, and
grown a
not to
lot
mention
since I
too,
last talked about this.
we're only probably counting people who don't have a home. Yeah, don't forget there are people who are the working homeless who work in their cars, or either that have some means in which
Yeah.
they are kind of squatting right now, or being with loved ones right now. I mean, yes, they have a
Hmm.
roof over their head, but I mean, they literally have nowhere else to go. So yeah.
Gosh. So, like, how do you feel as a veteran when you look at how we're funding wars, we're funding weapons all over the place, we're helping saber rattle the other world powers, and people here seem to be
Mhm.
waking up to it at least a little bit. And like what would you tell younger Kit about joining the military today?
If there
Maybe
was
that's a
a
better
Kit Cabello
question.
that's going to join the military today, right now, I would say don't do it, because
Yes.
my tours, my service was a lot different than any other people. Like I got very lucky. Both tours, everybody came home alive and well and in one piece. And my MOS, my military operations specialty, was infantry. I was a rifleman, 0300. So that was my MOS. That was my job. And you know that's like winning the lottery. I'll in fact, screw winning the lottery. Everybody came home alive and well in one piece. That doesn't happen often. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of veterans who would club me upside the
Mm.
head and switch places with me between 2004 and 2008. Both my tours, everybody came home. I cannot give that guarantee to any young man or woman who chooses to join the military right now. Plus, you are going into a political system that has shown firsthand, after we've been in war for like what 20 plus years and still ongoing, even if we're not yeah. I would
Been in
say,
war my whole life.
the government respects the active duty Marine or soldier or the active serviceman. They don't respect the veteran. All right. And even then, when you get
Mm.
out, there's so much bureaucratic red tape that you have to go through. Like
That's awful.
even when I had to get my GI Bill or my Illinois Veterans Grant, there was a lot of red tape you got to go through. And you have to be, if I didn't have my support from my family just saying, okay, kid, we got to do this, we got to do that, so you can get this bill, so you can get that bill. If I didn't have that behind me, I don't want to say I would have given up, but I don't think I would be as incentivized to keep pushing as hard as I did. And, even then, readjusting to civilian life after the military life, it was tough, very tough. And it's not an easy
Yeah.
thing to overcome.
Yeah, I recently had a war veteran on the show, and he was talking about how he healed his PTSD from war
Mm,
by using psychedelics. And he brought up something I'd never thought of
mm,
before. He called it moral injury, and he said there were points when I was there, and I was like, "Why am I killing people that look a certain way?" I'm like profiling them in my mind, and then we're killing them. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's something along that lines, and he's like, there's like a moral injury there of when I'm another human, hurting another human. And I think about, and he also talked about readjusting back into society and the challenges that he had with that. I just think it's so, like, the cost of war is so much more than money. And we look at
mm,
the Army, right, or the Marine Corps or the Navy,
mm.
and those are all individual human beings. And it's just, I just think about, I'm very human first. I always think about the individual when I do anything, right? Because I think we're all a human being essentially. But I just can't imagine ever unseeing what happened in 2001 and forward with the perspective that I have now, knowing that these wars killed people, destroyed families, damaged loved ones and friends of mine. And I can't ever imagine having someone want to partake
It's
or
it what
having
what
anyone that
we're
wants to
also having
partake.
here is a war weariness too for this population. And not to mention, look, 2001, I was a sophomore in high school, and I don't think any of us were really ready for overall what would happen. And I think there's a lot of American families now that have seen firsthand the damage of PTSD, as well as and there are people who have come home
Mm.
with missing legs or arms or so much more. And they are trying to struggle to, get back to their life. And, you know, people do talk, people do speak to each other. And there's always, well, do you really want to serve if this is what your country's going to do to you? Do you really want to serve if this is how they're going to treat you when you come back so disabled as you are right now? And so I would say to people, if you're thinking about joining the military, just remember, it is a serious task that you're doing, but there's always a cost. And once started, there's no going back. And if you are to be injured or something were to happen to you, your government will abandon you. And we've seen it. We know it. And people, there's a lot of American families that are talking about it. What's the incentive of sticking our neck out for a country that won't stick its neck out for its people, especially during the height of a pandemic where you got to stay locked down, but you can't go to work. You still got to pay the bills. but you can't leave your house. You still got to pay the water bill, electric bill, medical bill. All you still got to pay all the bills, but you can't leave your house. It's like a lose-lose situation. Our government, our country abandoned us long before COVID, and it'll continue to do so until people say enough.
Yeah. And I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to say enough.
Soon. I think there's always a breaking point
you
for
think
people.
So?
And I think there is a point to where people say enough, where people do, because you only can distract the people for so long. You can only, it's the price of food and goods and everything else has grown exponentially to where, how can we get by as a society and still not speak out? And people have a right to speak out. People have a right to push back at what's being put upon us. And my
but the United States is so compliant.
Yeah, but eventually those that are part of this compliance do awaken. And the thing is, there are people who are awakening. What that is that they might think that they're only ones that are awakened, or either that they don't know who to go to, because you have a lot of frightened people who are scared. And so what is happening though, and this is what gives me confidence, people are not putting trust in their government officials or corporate media or institutions, because they know.
But they're also checking out. A lot of them are checking out. That's where I'm kind of like, okay, so if you look at it and you look at it's all a scam, that's why I say our whole government's basically a scam at this point. And then you go check out and you're like, I'm just going to live my life the best I can. That's what I worry the compliance comes to. And we're heading into, you and I were talking about this.
We're
heading into 2024.
We are in 2024. We are in the election season.
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm politically homeless. I like Jill Stein. I actually asked her to come on this show and never got a response. I like the ideas. I don't feel like I have a politician or a party and I have three things that I care about. Okay. And they've changed. In 2016, it was everybody should have health care. That was it. That was when Bernie said that, we started talking about Medicare for all. That was my thing. I think everybody should have health care. Okay. Now I'm like, well, that's important, but I'm also worried about censorship, right? I'm worried about people after COVID who had fact-based or experience-based or whatever, anything against the narrative there, whether I agree with them or not, totally censored and shut down. And so now it's like, and what's happening with Julian Assange, now censorship is my number one thing, because if we censor people, whether they're experts, quacks, Alex Jones, or anyone, right? Or Trump on social media, whatever it is, when we can't have the voices, it's only a matter of time before you lose yours. So that's my number one issue now. And then my other one is I think we have got to do something about all of the wars. Like, we are not just in our own wars. We're now funding other people's wars. And we're just letting all of this stuff happen overseas. And it is, I know they used to say we got to fight them over there so we don't fight them over here. But at some point, we're going to have like a war is going to come here. It just is. There's no way around it. So I don't have anybody that's talking about those three things in any of these parties or independents. I am 100%.
I've been consistent about this since 2016. I've been voting independent, voting third party. I too am politically homeless, and no, I'm not voting for Biden or either that. When the DNC convention comes here, what I think is going to happen at the DNC convention is I think they're going to replace Biden and have somebody else. Yeah. So,
which is in Chicago for those listeners who don't follow it very closely.
As for the third party candidates, I really have to think about who's going to represent my values the most. And I am not as excited as I was for third parties in 2016 and all the other election cycles. The reason why I'm disappointed is because, they've had at least at the bare minimum since 2020 to really start building the infrastructure necessary to do a 50-state initiative. And the only third-party party that's been able to really get at least up to 48 states to be on the ballot have been the Libertarian Party. And I have my criticism of the Libertarian Party. RFK Jr. and Dr. Cornel West are both running as independents, but even then, running as an independent without official real infrastructure to do this, I mean, you should have started this since 2020, or use it at the beginning of 2023. And then with Jill Stein and the Greens have, at least as it stands right now, 18 to 20 states for ballot access. At least that's the best of my memory right there. And so ballot access is key. Fighting to get ballot access, fighting to ensure that people are able to vote for you. But when I look at the candidates, no one right now is representing me. I mean, I'll probably have to do an eeny, meeny, miny, mo when it comes down to third parties, because no one is really plucking at my heartstrings.
I know. No one's, and now that there's Cornell's an independent, RFK's an independent, Jill's with the Green Party. I don't know who's even running in the Libertarians anymore. But when I look at it, none of them are like, I'm going to galvanize the independents. Maybe RFK, maybe, but I feel like he's too controversial, and he's a little stubborn, I think, too. Like he's a little stubborn on some things, but I don't even know like who, at least before in 2016, I felt like Jill Stein, even though she didn't get much of the vote, she had like the progressives support, even if they didn't vote for her. So there was a bit of like keeping us together. Yeah, I don't feel we have that.
I felt at this point, when it comes down to the politicians, it's really hard to fill, or even at the third party candidates, it's really hard to fill in the shoes that Bernie left behind. Because if Bernie Sanders 2016, lightning in a bottle. Bernie Sanders 2020, it was a cheap imitation. No one else could do what Bernie was able to do in regards to pulling up a large political support from all across the political spectrum, so that he could be acknowledged as a front runner candidate. No one else has had that moment, and I don't think we ever will see something like that again.
No. And that's why I don't think we're going to have a leader. That's why I'm like, the left is dead, because we don't have a leader. We don't have anyone galvanizing us. And let me ask you this, and this is kind of one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and then we can wrap up here. But the political homeless thing, I feel homeless, you feel homeless. I think there's a lot of people that do. I even think a lot of people that are defending Biden or defending Trump are tribal.
Well, no one's excited about two old men fighting over a cold bowl of soup. We got 2020 all over again. Trump versus Biden, two old men fighting over a cold bowl of soup, and that cold bowl of soup is America.
And that's why it feels like we're in some sort of weird simulation. The only thing that would be crazier is if they replace him with Hillary, right? Like I was talking about with my friend as a crazy scenario. But so the left, right? I've talked to you for a couple of years now. I've been a big supporter of independent media since 2016.
Yeah.
TYT, even though I don't even know what they're doing anymore. I can't even listen to that show. You, Jimmy Dore, crew at Breaking Points, all these people. Yeah. But now everybody's divided in the left. So any chance of like all of these lefty media outlets or independent media outlets that are, giving a more fair assessment or attempting to give a more fair assessment, they're all fighting with each other. So that's what Force the Vote did to the left. It just had everybody kind of branch off, where I felt like Force the Vote, which for those of you who don't know, Force the Vote was an activist movement to force the Democrats, when they had control of the House in 2020, force a vote on Medicare for all, so that we could identify who actually supports it and would actually vote for it versus those who will not, and those who say they will, but then will not when the moment comes, so that you can do the activism to get candidates elected that would actually pass it. That was the point of Force the Vote. People had meltdowns all over the spectrum, but really on the left over this. And it created this divide where instead of everybody coming together around this idea, this one thing that could have really changed the trajectory of our politics on healthcare, everybody got divided and fought with each other. So I feel like even if we had that candidate or that activist, the left would still be fighting over it.
Well,
so what's with the infighting?
I think okay. So what led to the infighting is, I think there's a lot of people who still let the fear of Trump being elected get the better thought of their rational brain. I think with all the infighting in the left, you do also have a lot of Puritans. Okay, now what I mean by this is a lot of the SJWs, the social justice warriors, and the right wing has its own version of SJWs too. But among the left, each is saying, well, this issue is most important, or this issue is more important, or this thing or that thing. Overall, there isn't the bigger picture of what we must do to win. Everyone wants to have their own little victory or their own little green check mark saying that we did this, and everyone else needs to fall in line behind it. And the problem that Bernie Sanders did is he left no blueprint of how we keep this movement going forward. It's like he ran in 2016 and ran in 2020, and there was no person to follow afterwards. There was nobody to sit upon the throne. And so, and well, yeah,
AOC.
yeah,
If you ask my lefty
yeah,
friends, they say it's AOC.
but
I'm like,
even then for
still? You
AOC,
still think
when
it's
she starts
AOC?
praising Mama Bear Nancy, or either that saying that Joe Biden has exceeded expectations, I can't help but wonder, well, then why are you in office? Weren't you supposed to challenge the Democrats? Weren't you supposed to? There's a lot of things in which the squad could have done, but they chose not to
Bring
do
the
it.
ruckus.
So why there's so much leftist infighting? It's because you have people who want to have minor victories over a greater objective goal. And people, I guess, on the left don't like being told what to do because the left is supposed to be rebellion. But I've seen a lot of progressives and quote unquote free thinkers saying, okay, well, I'll fall in line. I'll stay home locked down. I'll fall in line and trust the leader. I'll fall in line and vote Democrat again, even though they don't give me anything.
And that's why I tell my friends authoritarianism, it's coming from the left and you're cheering it on. And, but it has to, if it's for the right thing or for the greater
There's
good.
intentions,
I'm like,
exactly. So if you're going to have,
with good intentions.
People cheering for censorship or people cheering for cancel culture or people cheering, yeah, not
even cheering it,
or
asking
anything like
for
that.
it. They're asking for it now.
If this was happening under Trump, people would be screaming from the rooftops. So I don't want to really hear about how people are afraid of Trump or what he can do when we're doing it to ourselves already. I remember in 2020 when people were saying, if Trump gets in office, a woman will lose her right to choose. We'll be close to World War III. The economy will fall apart. Our infrastructure is falling apart. There'll be natural disasters. There'll be man-made disasters. That's just the train derailment
He's going to start a war with North Korea.
Yeah, and
He's
all
going to
this
start
is
a
happening
war
under
with
a
everyone
Biden
but
administration.
Russia.
Roe v. Wade died under the Democrats' watch, and Biden could have done something.
And by the way, he ran. I did a whole Instagram long post on this when it happened. He tweeted, "I promise you, I will codify Roe v. Wade when I'm in office."
Because it's going to take away the fundraising. See, the Democrats know how to play the game, as do the Republicans. Because, okay, first of all, Democrats got rid of the Democrats let Roe v. Wade die. Here's the problem for the Republicans. They've always wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, but they would always be like, well, you got to vote for more of us so we could do this about. So it's all about the dollars. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. All about the money.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's where, and again, I don't even like to talk about the Republicans because I know who they are, right? And I'm not talking about people who identify as a Republican or people that are conservative. Like, I love you equally.
I love the Trump.
Even if you support Trump, I don't care.
I've spoken to a few Trump supporters, and I've been able to have more civil conversations with them because I remember some of the most diehard ones when I was first, like especially in 2020 when I was covering Bernie Sanders and everything else. Like the biggest trolls that were at that time were Trump supporters, and some were saying, "Oh, you're a communist, you're a socialist." Now it's more of like I get some liberals calling me a fascist or a Nazi, and it's like, first of all, I'm not these things. And then, like, when I'm speaking to Trump supporters, they'll say to me, like, okay, I can agree with some points that you're bringing up on, but I don't agree with these points. Occasionally I might get a joke here and there. Oh, you're a socialist or a communist. It's like, whatever, but it's different now. And I'm noticing, especially amongst those who are liberals or those who are afraid of Trump, who are progressive, you're letting a guy, some guy who's running for office live who live rent-free in your head. You're complaining about something that you have no power over, because at the end of the day, popular vote means nothing in this country. The Electoral College will dictate how this all plays out. You, the American person, are only participating in something. You do not have the full weight, and you cannot control something that is already out of your control.
So that's why they're cheering on people to remove him from the ballot.
I'm against that.
And I don't support Trump. I don't support the Republican Party, the people who are Republicans. I'm not talking about you. The party, I know what they are. I know what they're going to try to do. They've been trying to do the same things. They're going to want to cut Social Security. They're going to want to cut social programs. They're going to be war hawks by and large, all of that stuff. But then you look at the Democrats, where everybody feels like they're creating the safe space and they're leading the country. And it's like, they're leading us to hell, but they're doing it behind a mask that we're I forget who says it, but we're for good things and they're for bad things. And the reality of it is that you as an individual and me as an individual and all the people listening right now that are
Oh
individuals,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
they both suck. They're both doing harm to our country, our society, and the world. And they're doing it while we're sitting here arguing about the dumb
Exactly.
shit that doesn't
Exactly.
really
And
freaking
I'll
matter
go on to
at
this one.
all.
Like, look, this is just how I feel about it, and this might get some people upset because I've been saying, well, boy, you really have a laissez-faire attitude when the election night comes. Come election night, I will probably be doing a live stream coverage of the event, but before I do, I'm going to cook myself a delicious ribeye steak. Get a nice big sweet potato, get a nice little dessert, have some other side dishes, a shot of whiskey, a glass of wine, and I'll probably light one up, smoke some of that devil's grass, and then I'll do the show. Because the thing is, that's the one thing I can control. I will vote independent. I will vote third party. I will not be bullied and saying, "Oh, you've got to vote for Biden or Trump." No, I'm. Yeah, I'm.
Oh
Oh,
God, I can't
oh yeah,
stand
yeah.
that.
Well,
We
well,
should have
next
talked
time,
about
next time,
that.
next
Third
time, next time.
party.
We'll go into
Yes.
detail for more third parties,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with the DNC convention. Maybe you and I can meet up there or talk about it, whatever. I'm gonna be reaching out to a lot of
Absolutely.
other people in independent media to cover the DNC convention. So I'm gonna eat good on election
Yeah.
night. I'll cover it. I'll talk about it. But the point is, everybody that's watching for this election cycle, I get why some of you might be afraid, some of you might be indifferent, some of you are just okay. I'll participate. Whatever. The point is tomorrow after
And that's
election
okay.
night, the
Wherever you're at is
world will
okay.
still be the same. The world will still be moving on. Just a person will be in the White House, and you didn't put them in there. It was the Electoral College that did it. But what are you going to do tomorrow, the day after election night? What are you going to do to still keep on fighting for the better future? Because if you don't realize that the two-party system doesn't have a seat for you, you have to start making your own seat. That's why I started Hard Lens Media up with Daniel Lupker. That's why we started to build this organization up. And we started off as a Galaxy S7 cell phone, went to radio, got into CAN TV. We're on 5 different video platforms, and we're like 4,000 subscribers short of getting to 50,000. And obviously, my goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. But I mean, it is that's what I can contribute. And I talked to great guests. Nick, you were on my show. I've had activists and organizers and presidential candidates on my show. And I have to believe that this is what can inspire others to do more. And so, what are you going to do the day after election night? And don't let this control your life. Don't be afraid. You got to move on. There's a lot of things I'm dealing with personally, emotionally, mentally, physically that I have to deal with, but I can't let it control me because tomorrow is around the corner and I have to get out of bed and do the same thing and fight like all of you have to do it. So don't let this election cycle get the better of your emotions or your own mental well-being. You have to push forward.
That is so well said.
No problem.
And I appreciate you saying that because I need to hear
Fine.
it because I get in it and I'm just like, oh my God, this is just, it's horrible. So, well, yeah, that on that note, I'll turn it over to you. I know you just said I was on your show a couple of weeks ago. Give you a chance to ask me a question or if there's anything you're dying to know after our conversation
All right,
today.
so my question to you is,
before
Nick,
I let you go.
to you, Nick Thompson, the host of this fantastic Eyes Wide Open podcast, where you have outstanding guests and so much more. Where would you like to see this show of yours go in regards towards expanding and growing? Because because you and I can relate to this. This is a stressful job to do. It is getting guests on, and I do this show Monday through Friday, and there are days where I have to get out of bed. Like, where do you see this show going forward, and what are some of the challenges that you have to go through, or better yet, how do you try and decompress after doing the program and the show and the interviews?
My goal when I started this show, and I had wanted to start a podcast for like 10 years, my goal was I just want to have a place where people can share their story, talk about whatever they want, and have conversation that maybe helps people realize you're not alone or critically think or change their perspective. That was kind of my goal because I like to just have conversations like this, and I like to talk about mental health, politics, culture, all of those things. And I just want people to be able to like have a conversation that isn't bound by rules or the constructs of what you think is real and what you think is not, and or what you believe and what you don't believe. And I can talk to somebody who's on the right, I can talk to somebody on the left, I can talk to somebody who's an addict. I can talk to somebody who is just like me. I can talk to someone who disagrees with me, all of that stuff. And I just wanted to be able to have those kinds of open conversations with people because I think it's so beneficial, not just for people having them, but for the people that can listen to them, have their perspectives challenged, have their biases challenged, and really just sort of humanize people. So that being said, my long-term vision is that my company is called Eyes Wide Open Content. I want to eventually have additional shows. I actually
Very
just
good.
added a second show on my channel on Thursdays. Yeah, which I almost brought this up, but we got off topic. It's called Mental Health Headline Hot Takes. It's a YouTube exclusive. We take a headline of something happening in the mental health realm of the world and we just discuss it. So like yesterday or today's episode, we talked about AI therapists because there's now AI therapists.
What could go wrong?
Right. What could possibly go wrong? So I'm hoping to continue to grow the channel, grow the reach, and have open and honest conversations so that we can go through life with our eyes wide open. And the challenges that I have is the biggest one right now, and we didn't really talk too much about specific censorship, is I am fighting and organizing against big reality TV. And they have a lot of power on social media. They have a lot of power on the internet. Like you wake up the day the show comes out and boom, you got a blue check on Instagram. This was before you could buy them. So they have that power. They have those relationships. I am no proof. I am very confident that I'm shadow banned. I am. You look at my statistics on social media and they are completely different than they were before I started this. The UCAN Foundation and stuff. I look at my YouTube show and I get comments and DMs from people like, how is your work not going viral? How are more people not seeing it? And I don't know. The thing is, I don't know. Like I'll go weeks without a single subscriber growing on my YouTube show. I release content almost every day. And it's just, yeah. So it's like, so I have that. And then I go on Instagram and like, it doesn't matter what I post. Like it just doesn't get the views. It doesn't get the reach. And then what I noticed when I looked at my stats is when I would do like a post up until probably a little less than a year ago, I could look at it and I got 300,000 plus followers. Right. And everything used to be like, it would go to about 35 to 25% my followers. And then 65 to 75%, it would go out to new non-followers. That went to like 98% my followers and 2% my non-followers. So I'm now in an echo chamber. And when you're in an echo chamber on social media, you know what happens. Yeah, exactly. So I like that keeps me up at night because I put in a lot of work in, to your point, finding guests, researching guests, hearing their story, preparing, editing. Like I recently took over editing my show all by myself. Gotcha. So I'm editing the show. I'm putting it on YouTube. I'm putting it on podcast platforms. I'm getting guests. So it's a lot of work. Content creation, as you know, is not easy. But I think my biggest challenge right now is just kind of figuring out how to grow the show when I feel like a lot of the organic measures have been changed for me. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity with the type of content that I create and I produce and I help with. I just don't know how to get out of the echo chamber that I seem to be in.
I can relate to this a little bit too, because I've dealt with my fair share of censorship and I've helped people out to deal with whatever kind of shadow ban they've gone through. So it is, so for everyone that's watching, big tech corporations, they like to put their weight on the scale. I've been noticing a little bit on my end, especially on my channel, things have been going in the up and up, which is great for any content creator. But perhaps let's talk later, because I might have maybe a plan that could it might be a one-day solution, something like that could help out. But let's talk later after the recording. So I would just want to propose this, and
that would be
maybe
great.
Get your thoughts on it. But for those who see this, this is what I mean. This is like, it's tough to do because we are in competition with a lot of other content creators, podcasters. There's a lot of competition all across social media. But there is always the ever big weight of establishment power. And when you talk about things that aren't popular, it's either you get shadow banned, terminated, censored, or kicked off. So it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
How do you decompress though after a show? That's what I want to know.
I think for me, it's just the decompression comes once the show is edited and ready to go. And then it's like, okay, like that was worth my time. This is an important message or an important guest or an important topic. And that's kind of when I can kind of like let it out. But like this will be in me until I finish editing it. Like I'll just be like a pent up ball. How do you decompress?
So
you handle
all right,
much heavier
so, folks,
topics.
There are moments
every
when I'm
day.
at my weakest. There are moments where I have to literally force my body, like, okay, kid, you got a morning show. Get the hell out of bed. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Shut up. Prep, or because I do show prep before I go to sleep, and then I do show prep, like, again, double check, because you never know if there's any kind of breaking story that happens between 5 and 9, because at 9 o'clock is when I go live, Chicago time. What I usually do to decompress, because I also am not only the showrunner, I'm the host, I'm the producer, I'm the editor, I'm in charge of the social media right now. Daniel takes care of all the administrative and business aspects of Hard Lens. So, yeah, and he's doing a couple other projects with our other studio, 99 Perspective. So I take, he does his stuff. I'm doing my stuff. And what I usually do is I usually go for a 3-mile run to clear my head. I sometimes, if I don't have time to do a 3-mile run, I do a walk at least. I at least try and get find the nice sunny spot in my living room and at least meditate, have a cup of tea at least, because right now, hey folks, my social life isn't all the best. I don't have that significant other. So I at least try and find that peace and meditation for myself. And when it's evening, a glass of wine, maybe I might smoke for a little bit just to decompress. But it's just more of, I have to realize that this show, what I do, does inspire others to do good things. Now, I'm not saying that everyone goes out and starts doing heroic feats of actions, but it does make an impact upon people's lives. And I have to realize that I have a social responsibility to give my perspective and analysis on current day events to help empower people. What I encourage my audience to do, and my audience has done this, go to other sources of information, compare and contrast. Do you agree with what I said here? If there was something that I maybe said that you don't agree with, talk to me about it so I can improve, so that we can talk, because my audience is very diverse. I got conservatives, libertarians, socialists, and Greens, and that's what helps me decompress. Is I know I have an active community that will discuss topics, that will not jump down each other's throats, and actually talk to each other like adults. And that's what helps me push forward. How can I be better? How can I be a better leader? How can I be a better person, a show host? And that's what I do. I have to have that moment of self-reflection and self-love to go forward. And that means meditation, maybe a 3-mile run, screaming down the street like the maniac. Don't worry. There's a lot of CPD reports just from the Chicago Police Department about some madman screaming like the world's going to end. But that's what I do to the best of my ability. And if I do have some free time, true free time, I'll go see a movie, like, but that was like seeing Godzilla -1 was like that was a rare moment. I had nothing to do and things were going good for me on that day, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna have fun and nobody's gonna stop me.
Well, Kit, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you? And all of those links will be in the show notes.
All right, folks. Well, Hard Lens Media, that's HARDLENSMEDIA, Hard Lens Media. We are live on YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, Odyssey, and Kick every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central. We go from 9 a.m. to sometimes 11:30 a.m. in the morning. We're like a 2.5 hour show, give or take, depending on stuff I have to do on the side too. We have a show on Can TV where your interview will show up. 10 p.m. every Saturday, I believe. That's where we show up. So so I have a TV show on Can TV, which is nice. Chicago Public Access Television. So that's fantastic. And that's where you can find us. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Thanks again for coming on. Again, those links are below. Make sure you check out Hard Lens Media and give Kit a follow. It's good stuff. And again, you don't have to agree with everything that we say. Everybody's allowed to have their opinion. Everyone's allowed to think for themselves, and just keep doing that so you can go through life with your eyes wide open. That's the theme. So thanks, Kit. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.